because we have seen now Fredrin even struggle against real mid setup into the right. You can go for Tersakit to deny it and maybe set yourself up for an even better neutral objective take. Easy for you to go for the Yuzong, and for Myanmar, they won't take that.
Also, at the off-stream game, right? It was with a Harith and a Ruby. And their jungler was this is Indonesia that they're going against here, so obviously too, because of the fact that they're going against the Claude, like the option is, do you actually go with a traditional marksman? Because the Harith is taken out, we have seen some testing, I say experimentation, I should say, for the gold laners to bring something new to there. But I think if you're going against the Claude, you could just pick something a little more safe if you really wanted to.
The Tonton would be the safe option to go for, right? You can go for Purify, you can go for Flicker. I think any hero in the gold lane that can have that flexibility option to go for, a lot of different spells would be great in this current meta. With so much dive being placed onto you, with so much damage already as well from Cope coming in from that far side too. But they will actually ban out the Arlet last. So again, maybe setting up for I think, what do you think about that Arlet ban? Because me personally, looking at the Arlet, he's kind of a hero that isn't really that strong in lane, right? Like up against the Yuzong, up against the Terizla, it's a Terizla's lane to win, it's a Yuzong's lane to win as well. But when you pair in the Arlet together with this kind of composition, it makes sense. So it's more of a synergy ban, synergy deny ban, more than setting Lutpi up for success in that lane. Because if the Arlet gets to be picked up by Myanmar, with the CC coming in from the Ruby, with the angles created by the diversion as well, and obviously the CC from the Loyi and the Fredrin, you're gonna get quite a bit of vengeances there, man. Almost
a lot.
Infinity amount of vengeances. But it is going to be the Iesf pickup. Still a very, very big comfort pick here coming in for Keyboy. And what's great about this, the fact that they picked it up in the first phase, or in the first pick of the second phase, is because it's a good flex pick over to Lutpi. Keyboy can play it, Lutpi can play it, both of them do really well on it, and it sets up for now them to get a counter matchup when they get to see what Myanmar go for.
And also, just as a note, I think this Yuzong ban is still the portrait. This new portrait is for CC. I'm assuming. Okay, interesting, because as I was saying and looking at their old lineup from one of the games that they swept here, the Dairoth was a part of this lineup. The Dairoth they played last time was picked up there with the Ruby and the Loyi. The difference, of course, this time is they have a Moskov. Like I was saying, what is going to be that good matchup for the Claude in lane? At least with the Moskov, you should be relatively okay to farm up pretty well, and you know that Claude overall presence in the game farms lanes really quickly, like later on using the Blazing Duet, and can join fights. So why not pick Moskov? So at least you have the Spear of Destruction. You can hang out in the lane a little bit longer if you want to, and hopefully you land the Spear of Destruction. You can follow up with it. I think part of that too is, if they follow up with the Moskov, they set up really well with the armor penetration from a Dairoth. But look at this. The Masha comes through, and we've seen teams, I think even Malaysia banned the Masha
twice
against Indonesia, because they know that it is devastating here in the hands of Lutpi.
Especially with the Sky Piercer. We were talking about abusing the Sky Piercer on the Roger, on the Brody, but I think if you think Sky Piercer, right? Thunder Pierce definitely comes to mind. There's already a Sky built there. They are the Sky Kings. That's what we call them in Indonesia. And, you get the Thunderclap with your ultimate. Masha fits to that, Sky Piercer category so well. And I'm really interested to see how Lutpi plays this Masha, because it's so weird for Lutpi. We didn't get to see it for the most part in the regular season of MPL Indonesia, and we didn't even get to see it for the most part in the playoffs. He started picking it up after losing to Luke, an opponent of his who plays the Masha a whole lot. So the fact that Lutpi, now he's added a hero that he wasn't comfortable on to his arsenal and making it a prio pick for himself, making it a power pick, it's really impressive.
Well, we're going to find out here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the match. It's a best of 3 between Myanmar and Indonesia to secure a slot, the first one to the grand final, of course, later on, but more so for the WEC in Riyadh for 2024. It starts here in this best of 3. We saw both lineups. We talked about it quite extensively. And once we get a look also at the emblems, I'm not sure if anything stuck out just yet. It is Ken rolling with the Impure Rage. I like the fact that Fredrin is still versatile enough to pick like 3 different emblem sets, maybe 4, and kind of play around with that. Also, there's a whole lot of lethal ignitions here Zidez is also using the Brave Smite. We've seen this plenty of times with the Ruby, and even on the other side, nothing too crazy from this. Loopy does have the Lethal Ignition himself, so we'll see how this kind of new signature pick, I guess you could say, it's like a new pick in his repertoire to make work because he dealt with it so many times over in Indonesia against his other opponents. So it makes me really wonder too how this is going to work in the grander scheme of things, these later team fights when we're talking about especially the Skypiercer being built and online. And so for now, neither teams are really going to be pushing the momentum just yet. I think with these lineups for both of them, you just want to wait for the turtle. But it looks like Albert already going to go in, but just visiting, you know. I mean, really, you can't get this kill that you're looking for, but everybody needs to get these level 4s before this fight does become, before it does break out for that first turtle. So right now, we're still waiting for this last enemy minion to go ahead, and just look at the attention here. They might try to go for something, you know, try to pull like a cheeky move up top, but Turtle's up. And with that, Ruby DD doesn't have the level 4 just yet, so they'll wait. Sans also waiting, so it's up to Ken. Go ahead and stall out that Turtle, start it up. But look at Indonesia also getting in position here.
For Myanmar so far, Ken holding on to that turtle. Albert pops in a shield unity. Keyboy looking for an angle now of that onward. You can see that Albert will go for the shield unity onto Zide. There's gonna be the feather airstrike as well on the onward to get a claim for his blood. Albert winning on the retreat battle, but in the back it's gonna be Ruby DD who claims the kill on the Sans. But Loopy flickers forward now and just goes in for the last 2 scratches to get the trade in favor of Indonesia. Keyboy continuing with the onward and the Earth Shatter, knocking Ken up, doing some damage, and he does have the Primal Wrath, so he can try to go for a little bit more damage here. It is going to be the Praiser's Wrath forcing him out. He will be able to onward backwards again, just buying some time. Finally gets that Primal Wrath off. But yeah, early on, a win for Indo.
Yep, Keyboy knew. You know, he's like, I can stay here and just be annoying for a while because I have Primal Wrath. And yeah, they came out on top of that whole exchange. Oh, mid lane.
Great pickup on the Sans by Zide with the flicker into the I'm Offended, straight into the follow-up coming in from Myanmar. Well played to equalize the kills. On the board, diversion into the bottom lane. Doesn't have the I'm Offended though, so really no threat of taking CW down, not just yet.
Yeah, it was a good idea, like send the package, you know, type thing. Here we go. I was going to talk about the items because that whole exchange, how it happened. We might not get a chance though.
Earth Shatter. Onward not connecting earlier. Shield unity locking her down. Though Zide to be able to pop into I'm Offended, but will fall to the push. Sans as Juno in the bottom lane will still be able to use the Abyss Walker and the Spear of Destruction as well to try to defend and clear out these minion waves from pushing into that turret.
Okay. You know, I wanted to get a chance to talk about the items, but it looks like Indonesia just wants to keep fighting.
Another feather airstrike, no thunderclap just yet. Lippy decides to use it to try to go for that execute, and Sans will still be able to claim that kill up top.
All right, so Indonesia finding picks where they can. They might just go for another. Juno gonna be fine. Gets out of there with a walker. But so this is the thing, man. Like with the lead that Indonesia has gotten themselves. Oh no, Albert, is he gonna be in trouble?
Taking a whole lot of damage. A chain CC as well, but a good Earth Shatter from Keyboy now to go for the re-engage. Sans follows up as well. That's going to be a blazing duet from CW as he pops in a Purify to get out of the Dispersion CC and now goes back to the Battle Mirror image onto the turtle. Second turtle of the game, Albert on a diversion. Trying to give Ken a little bit of an angle. Spear of Destruction, but Albert just secures it with a Retribution. CW, no Purify, going to be caught on the flanks, and Myanmar will be able to get a trade off for that turtle. It's a kill onto the gold lane.
Okay, maybe we get a chance now. Let's look at it real quick before Ken starts a fight. But first item's kind of falling into place already. You got a Corrosion Scythe here for Juno. He's going to need a little more time to build up because the same thing is there for CW, and he's on to his second item. With that too, Skypiercer already being locked in for Loopy. That first item, that rush, is exactly what we were thinking about for the Masha, and that can be quite devastating. You got the wings already picked up by Sans, helps with that little bit of shielding and a little bit more mobility that already Farsa has a ton of. So with this, you know, this early game kind of advantage that Indonesia was able to get themselves gives them this upper hand, plus the defensive items they've already locked in. Still looking to get some of these first ones locked in. Oh, Albert, this is what I'm saying. He's quite tanky, even with the Baksha. So the classic matchup between the Fredrin.
What?
Oh, wow, Loopy. That's the Thunderclap Pierce.
We were talking about the Skypiercer, the Thunder Pierce, we might as well call it now, with how he's able to utilize the Masha. But remember, during the rosters, you know, when we're talking looking at the lineups, we were talking about how Ruby DD has so much more experience compared to some of the members from Indonesia, and especially his lane opponent. Lutfi's a rookie in MPL ID in Indonesia, and he just got a solo kill against a legend.
Man, right now, they're just playing with these timings that they have on you know, especially the different lanes, but Lutfi especially with that Sky Piercer like we were talking about, you know, and we know, hold on, Keyboy diversion?
Okay, it's gonna be Keyboy caught in, and that's gonna be everything in the kitchen sink. Keyboy still able to flicker out to safety, but the Spirit of Destruction and the follow-up from Ruby DD as he flickers in will be able to catch Keyboy and take him down in the 6th minute of the game. Straight for the turtle, the final one of this game to spawn back into the Land of Dawn. Straight onto it though, it's gonna be Ken and Ruby DD. Albert is looking for an angle to perhaps go for it. Pops into Poissons, hovers over the turtle, goes in for the retribution, but it's still gonna be Ken who wins it out in the end, and that's the first turtle on the board for Myanmar, technically. Shield Unity, Feather Airstrike, catching Zide as he flickers out with the Don't Run Wolf King. CW jumps in with the lazy Duet, gets carbon ammo offended, but will be able to take him down as he goes back towards that battle mirror image. Looking for the flicker only onto the wall, though, loses that 1 HP bar and gets the reset on the Thunderclap, but is not in range to go for that Thunderclap. Now another diversion. Lutfi gonna be caught by the taunt again. Lutfi taunted up and locked down by the Spear of Misery. Justin gets rid of him. That's gonna be a good dodge by Keyboy, sidestepping away from the Appraiser's Rattles. Now it's gonna be the re-engage coming down onto Myanmar. Ken looking for the damage, but Keyboy will out-sustain the Fredrin, and the Feather Airstrike gets popped in. The last one doesn't connect, but the flicker does! Gila Sans continuing on the Farsa.
Oh my goodness. You know, I think that's all it's going to be is just clash after clash and team fights, because so far, that's what both these teams have wanted to do. And actually, when you watch them through the group stage and we talked about exactly how this new patch, these new items, has changed the course of the game, this is the highlight. Like, these are the ways, the play styles that these teams have. They've been known for before, and now it's even more so. And Albert gonna battle out with Ken, and it looks like they're gonna go for it.
Yeah, Albert did actually steal that away. Another Feather Airstrike as well. Ruby DD gonna be knocked up by Keyboy, and just with those shields thrown out, Albert will be able to take him down. In the mid lane, Team Lutfi wanted to go for that turret. CW will be able to get the tier 2 up top for free. However, no, not for free. Juno, good maneuvers to look for trades on the map.
Wow. Okay. So again, Indonesia will still hold on to the lead that they've got themselves up to this point. They are furthering it a little bit more. And even when Myanmar, they've been making actually pretty good positioning plays with Justin utilizing that diversion. It's just unfortunate because they're kind of, you know, the item disparity or the economy lack here is really what's showing in some of these skirmishes and team fights. And so as they get ready for this Lord here, I think it's still a little tough for Myanmar to actually approach this fight because they're outgunned and out-itemed. Even with a good diversion play, if they can catch out a key target, which could be Sans, could be CW, then they might have the upper hand. Then they have to deal with Lutfi, especially on this Masha, like we said, with the Sky Piercer already and other items locked in. So with that, Myanmar will actually go ahead and try to dance this off, it looks like. But even with Keyboy, early immortality picked up. He has the Primal Wrath still available as well. The placement and positioning here for Indonesia is really what's going to kind of set this apart. And that with the lead they have, look how front forward they can be. They can actually dominate this side of this Lord, zoning out the members of Myanmar. You have to wait, because Ruby DD, where is he going to enter from? But 4th of health.
Ken's all alone. Chain CC'd. Albert going to be able to pick up the Lord for free. Ken to be melted down. Lutfi walking forward. CW with a battle mirror image aggressively as well to the fronts. But Indonesia will just be happy with that trade. No contest for Myanmar.
Okay, no contest for that one. Again, this is what I was saying. I think it'd be difficult for them to really contest that first Lord or even fight that fight. But you know, the way that they come back into this game, even given the fact that 4,000 lead for Indonesia is really utilizing diversion like they have. They've had some pretty good plays, but also Juno. Great thing, Juno hasn't died yet. He hasn't gone down. He's been able to farm up pretty well. He's got the 3 items. He's got the DHS, Corrosive Scythe. He's got the Golden Staff. So he should be able to pump out pretty good damage. Might work on that Wind of Nature next for a little defense. And he's going to be a key component in winning some of these fights. Not only that, but if Ruby DD can get the setup that he's looking for with this Dairoth pick, penetrate that armor and set things up here, what do you see?
Wait, did Albert just accidentally get 2 Sky Guardian helmets? I think he did, and he just sold the Sky Guardian helmet to buy another Ares belt. I I think that might have been a mistake, man, and that's actually quite a costly one. I don't know if it's a visual bug or if it actually is true that he sold the Sky Guardian helmet, because I saw him pick it up, and there was 2 in the inventory. Juno doing a good job at clearing up top lane now. CW gets rid of the tier 2 in the mid lane as Litpi as well tries to do the same thing, but towards the tier 2 in the bottom lane. CW with a battle mirror image towards the fronts, trying to go for some damage onto Ken, but he will still be able to utilize that turret splash to clear out the waves. And it seems for Indonesia, they want to get rid of all the turrets, all the base turret splashes with the First Lord.
Yeah, that's probably the best that they can do for now. Even with the lead that they have, they still have to respect the fact that, like I said, setup potential from Myanmar is actually pretty good, and Juno hasn't died, and because he has the 3 items that he really needs to lock in, he doesn't have to worry so much about having the Wind of Nature just yet, as long as they're on the defense. Once they start kind of pressing forward a little bit, obviously Juno's going to want some of that defensive, but he's all, right now he's, oh, hold on, Ken should be fine, gets thrown up into the air. This is all the battle for the orange, though.
Okay, that's a shield unit as well. Now into the Earth Shatter as he gets the stun down. Ken will be knocked back again with the Onward. They go for a flying on the sound, but he's still able to survive right now. The Feather Airstrike popped in, but gets caught by the Petrify as they look for Justin now, who's going to be completely isolated. Lippy with another Thunderclap, and you might as well call it the Thunder Piercer, because that's what it is on the Masha. Your HP bar just disappears whenever he goes for that Thunderclap. Albert and Keyboy zoning Zide and Ruby DD. None of the backliners alive for Myanmar. Indonesia can go for the end right now. Battle Mirror Image, that's going to be the Onward to cancel out any sort of re-engage from Zide. Ruby DD all alone. They're going to go straight for it. Luppy again with the Thunderclap and the Sky Piercer to assassinate Ruby DD to claim game number 1 for Indonesia.
Man, oh man. I jokingly called it the Thunder Pierce in the draft.
Turns out you're right.
That was exactly what it was, bro. Like, my goodness, does that combination work out so well? This was great to see. It was very enjoying to see that on the Masha. I just don't know how long we're going to be able to enjoy this. Like, I feel like there's some changes coming up for the Sky Piercer.
I feel there's going to be a hot fix.
I feel like there's going to be a hot fix, too. There has to be, because so
maybe
far...
even just tomorrow.
Maybe, because my goodness. And at the same time, when this was locked in, I think even you, for yourself, like, you know this very well. You know, you knew that this was going to be a good game here for Lutfi on this Masha pick, and it proved it. And it was very difficult for Ruby DD to do anything on the Dairoth. You know, we're going to look at the highlights here in just a second, but you'll see what I'm talking about. Indonesia also did a really good job at just starting a little bit slow in the early game, but once they got to the objectives and they controlled this portion of the game, they never let go. I mean, even with this exchange, you're already seeing Lupi start this road to domination on the Masha, and you know, it was good attempts, good plays from Myanmar in the early game, trying to utilize the diversion, utilize the fact that they have a ton of CC with Zidez on this Ruby pick. But I think overall, just the amount of plays that Indonesia was able to make quickly across the map and not have a Lui on their side was a really telling tell for them. I mean, even this, like I said, burst damage, whenever you have the Farsa locked in, is crazy already early game, because you don't really have the defensive magic items that you need to deal with the Feathered Airstrike. You throw in the Masha on top of it, and it gets super tough to deal with in terms of surviving that. This was a great diversion, by the way. I like to see that use, but then again, even with it, they do get CW, but still the fight, that's it. That's all they could do. They get one body. Look at this. Look at the damage. This is what we're talking about. Ruby DD gets chased down. Here's Loopy. Boom. 9999. Sky Piercer Thunderclap, right? So with that, like I said, diversions were pretty good for Myanmar, but once that's gone, then what is your next play if you're Myanmar? Are you able to go toe-to-toe with the lead that Indonesia was having? Because even at this point in the game, 7 minutes in, it was nothing crazy. The lead wasn't anything out of control just yet, but with punishing plays like this and good just timing from, you know, ultimates like the Blazing Duet, the Feathered Airstrike, and even just the setup potential from Indonesia's lineup really helped them out. Myanmar was in this game, I would say, even at this point in the game, but slowly but surely it slipped out of their hands. And when we get to eventually that first Lord, that's really where it got just kind of snowballed in favor of Indonesia. Great flicker play from Sans, very, you know, key style of him to do on this Farsa. Like I said, he's picked it up a couple times to the group stages and has had phenomenal performances so far. And even Albert on this Baksha almost played like an assassin. He was everywhere. Whether he got 2 Guardian helmets or not, he was everywhere he needed to be on the Baksha, played it very well. And this is what you want to do when you see a Fredrin across from you. The Fredrin was first picked for Myanmar, and they played into it really well by just picking up a Baksha. Nothing too fancy. Honestly, when you look at this game, Indonesia didn't do anything too fancy. It was very foundational skills. The Masha was probably the most fancy thing about it, just because it's such a glass cannon, you know, with the Sky Piercer rush. But everything was very fundamental here from Indonesia, and it got them that win in a very quick fashion, 12-30 on this, and with a pretty big lead too. And things kind of, like I said, with the draft they had, it just fell into place for them really well here. The damage that you got to see just pumped out from Lutpi, an XP laner on a Masha, is what makes it so scary. Like, Lutpi out-damaged the gold lane and the mid lane. That's probably why, you know, some people are like, hey, take out this Masha, especially when you're facing against Indonesia. Very, very strong performance here from Lutpi, and just so, but either way, like I said, for Albert specifically here, what we've seen for the group stage is just, again, a very dynamic player. Not only is he dynamic in game, but he spoke pure English yesterday in the interview, which still I was like, man, that's dynamics right there. So, you know, he's played these assassin picks where he's gone like 16-0, and now he plays the Baksha like this too. And I think it was the perfect fit for this lineup, because you're just letting the other lanes really shine with this. Like, they're the ones to do the damage. You're not the assassin anymore. And that showed, because Lutpi shining on the damage department, you know, in terms of like, even against a Claude and a Claude, okay, because Claude takes a little more time to build up and get the Blazing Duet off. But like, even to out damage a Farsa, like that was a surprise to me. And I think it just shows how dominant Lutpi was on the Masha pick. So I'm almost expecting, as we wait for the draft for game 2, Myanmar will ban out the Masha. They don't want to deal with it. Maybe this is the time too, like, and they'll probably respect ban Ling still. But I could also just see Indonesia putting an assassin this time if they want to on Albert, let him have his game now that he's had this Baksha, this Baksha game in the game number 1, and then kind of build from that, because I feel like too, depending on how the bans go, priority wise could still be up in the air so far, man. And it's like, even when I watch the Lo Yi, she's struggling, and I don't know why. The diversions were good, but why is Lo Yi not winning games? Not just here for Myanmar, but like multiple teams. I feel like she's really struggling, and so I don't know if it's just the diversion alone. There's something has happened here, America. I'm not sure what it is, but I think she's still good, and teams will still pick her up. There's definitely something happening with the Lo Yi.
She's definitely been capped. I think she's definitely just been limited down, right? Because the fact that her ultimate now, the diversion, has been increased, I think it's to like it's quite long actually, especially for stage 1, right? When you've just leveled it up level 1, it just oh man, that duration for the cooldown is a bit too long. And you can see that for Lo Yi, at least, what made her really strong, on top of obviously having crazy base damage like you mentioned, that is still why she can actually still be picked in the first phase. That's the only reason. Because if it's purely just for the diversion, if let's say she's a late game pick, she's not going to be picked up at all right? She already has that snowballing potential, and even with the diversion getting nerfed, you can still deal a lot of damage. But when the opposing team is able to just weather the storm of that early game damage and also read out the diversions, that's when you have a big problem. For most of the teams that have been, even trying out the Lo Yis, it's still been coming back to hurt them. Indonesia tried to play that against Malaysia, and again, Malaysia were able to weather out the storm in the early game up against that Lo Yi, and also they were able to catch all of the diversions. The diversions won't be as creative as they used to be, because now you can't take those crazy risks anymore. I think we saw I think in that game as well, Justin used the diversion in towards like the bush right in front of the purple buff. You remember that? And right as they saw that, they were like, all right, let's go for the Lord. They knew that there was no way for the diversion to be up again within the time span of them taking the Lord. So that in itself is already a big weakness that a lot of teams can exploit for the Lo Yi. You can't even feint anymore. You can't do that anymore because it's just so readable now. And back to your point where you actually were talking about the Masha, I would love to see the Masha banned out too, especially against Lutfi. But the thing is, they're going to have to ban it out in the second phase, I feel. Because in the first phase, it's Ling, Chip, and Angela. Those are the 3 bans that Myanmar went for. And now, especially considering Indonesia will most likely be on blue. Not sure, again, if this is actually going to be the case, right? But even if they stay red, I think it'll still be the same bans. It'll still be Ling, it'll still be Chip, and Angela. Those 3 heroes are just so good for Indonesia, and you really, really can't afford to give it away to them. One way I see it, like the Masha fit in the first phase, is through Ken picking up the Ling, or through them going for the Chip. They need to pick what they banned out in the first game if they want to go and let go of 1 slot to go and replace it for a Masha ban. But the safe choice would be, hey, Lutfi picked it up in the second phase. He's never picked it up in the first phase, at least not yet. You can play that gamble, hope that it doesn't get picked in the first phase, and maybe ban it out in the second phase. But then if it does get picked up in the first phase, we got to start thinking about counters here. The Dairoth was not it. The Dairoth was not a lane that does well against the Masha, at least not there.
Point when Masha was, for some teams, like in different professional leagues, like it was picked up first pick. Like there was a time when it did happen when she started to rise again through the ranks, and it was either she was flexed as even a roam or she was put in the XP lane. This time around, though, it is going to be Indonesia on this blue side, and then you'll have Myanmar on the red side. And I know, for Indonesia, like you said, these bans are quite similar. Angela is actually going to be taken out by them, the Fairness as well. There's the Ling, the Respect. So, I think it's really up to Myanmar. Like, how do they want to go about that first phase for themselves, depending on what's given up here. And Indonesia, they can really go a couple different ways. Like, they could go in priority an assassin pick early off the bat. They don't have to. They could also, something that's happened with a lot of the games for Indonesia, and I think is a big part of the drafting phase, is the fact that you have quite a bit of flexibility with Keyboy. Keyboy, if you look at the heroes that he's played so far, even through the group stage, like he's phenomenal on the Edith. Like we've already seen that. But yesterday he even picked up the Guinevere roam. You know, and how many massive plays did he make on the Guinevere roam? So, you know, when you have roamers like this on certain teams, it's difficult to go through the draft, and really, you kind of just have to pick your poison when it comes to, you know, these bans and what you're willing to give up, because you can only have so many bans. And that's the R lot that is going to be taken out here for the last ban for the first phase from Indonesia. Myanmar, we'll see what they answer with. Again, there's a whole lot on the table. I think even lately, we've seen so many contests for the Iesf pickup from men's and women's. And Iesf alone as a hero is probably one of the more successful roams right now, setting up for team. I would say, for Indonesia at least, the GRUP. We saw this ban out before, but wow, it's the Lui. So Myanmar took the task of banning out the chip and the Lui, and so the response is a Harith over here.
They let the Harith go, and technically they also leave the Roger go. So I honestly, with the Lui ban, it makes sense. I was about to say, you know, before they actually banned the Lui, that the Harith and Roger will definitely be something in their minds, but letting go of both will be great for them, because then they can actually just decide to react to the pick, whichever, you know, Indonesia go for. If they go for the Roger first, Myanmar will react with the Harith. If if Harith gets picked up, they'll go with the Roger. So vice versa. We'll see now. Myanmar, I think one slot will definitely be used for the Roger, but now that the Frederick gets picked up, if they do go for the Roger, but now technically it already kind of deletes that flex potential from the game. Roger won't be going into the jungle unless the Fredrin goes XP. And I gotta be honest with you, Naisu, I am a Fredrin XP hater. I am the #1 Fredrin XP hater, right?
Why?
I just hate how, you know how, like, you know, in the XP you want to go for brawls? The Fredrin's like, nah, I'll just, I don't want to, yeah, he just wants us the same.
I'd
Good
win.
Nolan pick, though. I'd win, but, you know, he eventually he never wins, but he never loses. He's just a non-lane.
It's a
the
dead lane.
gets picked as well. And the Nolan's going to be a great pick here. If the Fredrin does go for the towards the jungle, this is what Indonesia have been able to utilize, I think, yesterday as well. The multiple layers of damage and the versatility that you get with the Nolan and the Harith. You can go back and forth. You can also still kite, but obviously the #1 way to win with this composition is go for the initial burst, lock them down, and burst them down on the spot.
Man, I'm glad you pointed that out too, because I'm also wondering, like, if Myanmar picked up the Fredrin like a little bit early here, but, you know, because you already know where things are going into place. Okay, Tigreal is what they grab up. I would like to see them ban out Guinevere. I don't know if it's actually worth a ban for Myanmar, but this lineup, when we saw at least the Harith and Nolan, the Guinevere was for Keyboy. And that was what helped, like, the setups with just having a Guinevere for those two heroes alone. And now you have a penalty zone. It was nasty, man. So I feel like for Myanmar, I might think about banning out the Guinevere, letting that be one of the bans here. But, you know, at least they answer it. Hey, they have a Tigreal, pretty good implosion setups that can happen with this lineup, especially when you're fighting into a possible penalty zone, being the initiation. You know, that happens a lot of times so far from when we see Terizla's locked in. It's just, you want to be able to fight into that, because that's going to be a Zaman Force also being dropped down. So they do go with a roam ban, but it's going to be a GRUP instead. And so far, like I was saying before, I think, you know, Keyboy's versatility as a player and his hero pool is kind of what makes this lineup so strong, or just Keyboy so strong in general, is the fact that you can ban out some of the key heroes he picks, but then he kind of just like curveballs and picks a Guinevere, who there are not many roams that are actually confident enough to pick a Guinevere and then play it to the way that he did, like especially yesterday. So now for Indonesia, on the other hand, what do they want to ban out here? You know, some mages, some more mages maybe they could take out, you know, for the mid lane being an option. Wow, a Paquito. Not expecting that, because, man, we have not seen much Paquito throughout this entire ISF run.
Not at all. I don't think we've seen a single Paquito game in the entire ISF for African regional qualifiers combined with the Asian regional qualifiers. So
he popped up in women's today. I remember watching a tournament of Rashi. He just popped up once. So that's, like, I think the first time, man.
Yeah, the fact that it's only popped out once, right, means that I don't know about the Paquito. Maybe in these matchups up against the Yuzong, the Terizlas, you know, the two super prio heroes, it just doesn't do too well. Or maybe it's just because now you're kind of forced to commit into these team fights, not so much play the Lord Dance anymore, right? But for Myanmar, like you said, I completely agree with you, by the way. The Guinevere makes perfect sense for Indonesia. there's so much value here. Number one, you get the Violent Requiem. That in itself is already an anti-CC that you can utilize to get out of these engages coming in from the Tigreal. They actually go for the Masha ban as well, so 2 XP bans towards RubyDD. A lot of respect placed down as they've already revealed their own XP lane with the Terizla. But another reason why well, actually, the other 2 reasons why it's great is because, number 1, or number 2 actually, the number 1 we already got earlier, is it is a great lockdown hero, a good setter to set up for the Nolan and the Herod damage to come through, and to even set up for the penalty zone to just find a more reliable hit.
Yeah.
But then the final reason has got to be the Fredrin. I think back then when Fredrin was ultra meta, the way that you would actually try to counter it in the jungle would be the Guinevere. The Guinevere will be a solid answer to go for the retreat battles, because you could actually just go away with the spatial migration, get the stun, and it kind of works in a way similar to the Akai. You CC your opponent to get 100-0 retreat, to win out in the retreat battle. And because of the range changes, now the Guinevere we don't see too much in the jungle, but I think for Keyboy, you can still make it work. It's a good Novaria pick though. I think that will kind of stop and give the Guinevere a hurdle if they do still decide to go for the Guinevere. Because on the Guinevere, you're very reliant on these ambushing attacks. You need to play outside of the vision, right? You have to play within the pockets there, back and forth. Because if you get read out, it's pretty easy to predict, a spatial migration coming in from the Guinevere. You can see it in their eyes almost.
You can see it in their eyes if you were in the first-person view in the Land of Dawn, There it is. I was saying, we saw this iteration already, these combination of heroes with some minor changes. Instead of the Terizla yesterday, it was an Arlot. And instead of the Valentina, yes, it was a Loi Yi. Loi Yi was actually picked up. So, the core 3 there, though, that made it so deadly was the Guinevere, the Nolan, for the most part. Like, early game snowball potential is really there. So I think for Myanmar, as they go in for their last pick, they really need to have a kind of a plan in mind. It's going to be the XP lane, unless this is a crazy flex with the Fredrin. Not sure if that's going to happen, though. But the Yuzhong is open. Not sure if they actually want to do that, or maybe possibly go with something we haven't seen yet. I'm just assuming, they go Yuzhong because that's Yuzhong and Terizla matchup we've seen so many times throughout the Iesf groups, and they go Cho. Okay, so they go the Cho pick, which you're going to put in the XP lane. What do you think? Do you think that's good? Do you think this is a good choice?
We did see the Cho yesterday, right? I believe Myanmar versus Thailand, RubyDD actually did play the Cho in the XP. Yeah. So technically, we've already seen that before. He was also able to win, but that was against Thailand. And now against this composition, there's so much anti-CC, so many dashes. I guess the one member you can go for the pickoffs on would be the Nolan. Right now, with the Fracture also, no more, CC immunity, no more kind of built-in Purify with the Fracture. So technically, I see the idea. And especially now that the Cho has been buffed in a way where in the lane, he actually does a lot more damage. That passive has the physical defense shreds. It'll work towards the Roger as well later on in the game. And if you go for these pickoffs, and with the Jeet Kune Do, it allows you to go for the trades a bit more reliably now compared to before when it was a bit shorter. But I'm not a big fan of the Cho in the XP. I think you all know why.
Well, let's find out here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's game number 2. Match point for Indonesia to move forward and advance to qualifying for the WEC in Riyadh. All they need is this one win to move forward. Myanmar, can they extend the series to get to the 3 game? We're going to have to take a look at this exactly because, yeah, like we said, there's a whole lot of Purifies here to deal with a lot of the CC that Myanmar has available to them. And look at this, already early rotations happening here for Juno. But, one thing too, I'm not sure if anyone's going to get a kill with this early on with this lineup, but with RubyDD running, like you said, this kind of new Cho, having that passive, I think it's like 180% is what you get with that bonus attack. But then you have a concussive blast. So I'm wondering how the lineup, or how the matchup with even going against a Terizla performs in terms of like the numbers and being able to stay. Or is it just purely, I'm going to go and try to get some pickoffs, because right now they're just duking it out. And you can see Lutby also went up with the Brave Smite. So once he goes with War Axe, most likely he'll be able to just kind of stay in the lane as long as he wants to. So on mid lane, still Albert trying to find early pickoffs, but I just don't think it's going to happen here until these level 4s, especially that Turtle still 30 seconds away. But look at this, Ken fighting for his own XP, and Albert will go ahead and just continue on with this.
I think, with Brave Smite, hold on. Down below, Lycan pounds Juno, going to be caught in the spatial migration as well. Does have the Purify to get out, but the damage is certainly there. Juno will have to respect it by backing away. But back to the Brave Smite. So most Terizlas that we've seen, especially with the War Axe change, they go for the Impure Rage to get more mana, and then they just go and rely on the sustainability of the War Axe. So the fact that he's doubling down means he's ready for Myanmar's full-on team fight and the longer team fights. As Albert starts his turtle, Keyboy's hovering over, doesn't have that level 4 just yet, but has already been able to shove in that bottom lane, or that mid lane actually. Good Astral Echo, and that's giving the spatial migration. Albert with the fracture, not even, actually, will be able to go for it. Now penalty zone locking him down with the Violent Requiem. Albert picking up the first blood, as Zide will be forced to run away, but even then, the Retribution slows him down, gives Albert the movement speed to catch back up and to take him out. A 2-0 start for Indonesia.
Man, this is what I was saying even yesterday, Mirko. Like, once Albert gets snowballing on any of the assassins that he picks up, he's going to continue to just be very aggressive. So you got to be, if you're Myanmar, you got to be able to answer this. And that might just be also protecting Ken a little bit more, because that pressure could get a little overwhelming. You're seeing nothing locked in first item-wise yet for both teams, but Indonesia getting themselves already 2K ahead against Myanmar with all those exchanges is where they usually start their games. It starts a little bit slower, they get the advantage going, and then it snowballs out of control. We saw this the last time, like I said, continuously with this lineup, these three heroes, the Keyboy on that Guinevere, you have Albert on the Nolan, and of course a CW on the Harith. There's a ton of damage potential that can happen here early on. And for Myanmar, they have tanky enough heroes. But, that's kind of what they're hoping for, that we're just tanky and durable enough to deal with the burst damage that can come through. I mean, even look at this. Ken.
Spatial migration again with the Violent Requiem straight into the Fracture, and Zide will be able to get the Implosion down. Sans, an Implosion as well, not connecting to anyone, but Zide will still be melted down slowly but surely for Albert to pick up a killing spree in the first 3 minutes of the game. Deja vu to game 1 yesterday, or game 2.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying though? Like Myanmar, they drafted this because they're like, I hope we're tanky enough to go and deal with this burst, but it's just showing that they're not. And a lot of that has to do with the way Indonesia is cycling through their CC. And that's whether, and we talked about this extensively in the draft, that Keyboy was probably going to pick up the Guinevere, and I'm surprised that it actually wasn't banned out for the last ban for Myanmar, because it works wonders with this lineup. So now that this turtle's up here, Myanmar, despite them being down already, 3,000-4,000 gold, they do still want to fight for this objective. And as long as they at least, watch out for Keyboy setting up just like that, that's good. They don't get set up, so at least, they avoid it for now, but still they have to win this battle. Echo going to be dropped down too. They get the vision, but still both teams are ready to go for it. It's going to be a full-on fight.
The penalty zone onto Ken now with the Implosion as well, locking him down. Loopy dealing a lot of damage. Ken will be taken out, but just with the hammer swings as CW jumps with the Synchro Vision, and Albert gets rid of the frontliners. Juno completely zoned away. They're being overwhelmed by damage. Another spatial migration into the Violent Requiem. Keyboy finding an angle to attack again, and Justin doesn't have mana to play with. Oh no, Astral Recall means that Albert can just walk up Fracture, and now the Lethal Ignition ticking down slowly but surely. Albert fade away kill under the tier 2 as he now goes for the steal. I don't think he'll be able to do so. Ken has the Retribution, but man, Albert's already 3 levels ahead.
Oh, awesome. We're going to take a look at this replay here on how this kind of unfolded. And like I was saying, Myanmar, I'm surprised they really do want to go and fight for this, because, wow, that's all in reverse, by the way. So it's all in reverse, I think. But
dynamics, bro.
The dynamics. But, as we saw that unfold, it was Myanmar just choosing to fight for that. And honestly, it didn't work out for them the way they wanted it to. And Albert also, with that whole exchange, now picks up the Sky Piercer. And look at Keyboy. Like, this is just how confident Keyboy is with this Guinevere. Given the information, he's the walking ward.
Spatial migration only onto the orange buff. Albert decides to just take it away from Ken. Being 4 levels ahead, it does, look quite easy to go for these steals. But, man, the fact that he was... What is up with Albert on the Assassins? It just... Do you remember last game, he played the Baksha. It looked like, okay, he's good. But on the Assassins, it's a different level entirely. Ruby DD Kudo, I don't think you can really even go for this. Loopy gonna be able to out-damage Ruby DD, and that's right, Keyboy! Again with the Violent Requiem, locking Justin up as Loopy goes in for the hammer swing, and Keyboy gets out. Elbow with Fracture, now CW goes over the spot for Sans again with the Implosion Steel to corral them together for that collapse. 11-0, and now it's gonna be Ruby DD who gets slain by CW.
My goodness, just like yesterday. The same thing is happening with this lineup that just has a few changes, but what the heck? Indonesia just pulling forward again. Myanmar, you guys have to understand, Myanmar was basically undefeated in the group stage. They just dominated time and time again, and now Indonesia, even though they lost in the group stage, at this point it looks like they are playing perfectly with this lineup, with this composition of heroes even. And Albert, yet to be killed, yet to be stopped, picks up a Malefic Roar. I don't even know what Myanmar can do at this point. They have to somehow, some way allow Juno to get online, and this is exactly why I say, man, I don't like Roger in the gold lane. I'd rather have him in the jungle because it's just so difficult for him to farm up at this point to get the space that he needs to work with. And I mean, you're looking at the disparity in terms of the gold. He's also just very far behind CW right now. He hasn't died, which is great, but look at all the setup potential you have with these heroes, and you have no follow-up. If he enters, if Juno tries to go in, even Lycan pounce in, he's probably going to get blown up before he gets a chance to get a hit off. You know, that's the troubling part about having this Roger in the gold lane. And so now you're forced, hold on.
Keyboy going to be locked down. By the way, the Dragon as well, and Keyboy will be locked down by everything in the kitchen sink to get Myanmar their first kill in the game. CW going for the chase though. Options Zaman Force will not be able to fully go for that kill onto Juno, who still has the Purify, but Indonesia want to utilize this resource advantage now. As Ruby DD walks up again with the Shun Pool, it's going to be Albert walking up, dealing some damage back onto Ken, forcing him to half HP as Sans deals with them in the back as well, isolating and zoning them away from this tier 2 in the mid lane.
Oh, Sans also picks up the Implosion, so we might have to keep an eye on a possible play. Doesn't have a flicker, it went with the Purify instead, but can still possibly use that in a quite a surprising way. You'll have to see it unfold. Taking a look at the items real quick too, you can see them coming into place already. CW has those 3 items working on the next here. Could be a Holy Crystal next, or just going into even some more penetration, because right now there's just too much damage overloading Myanmar. When they get a pick off with Ruby DD, it's great, but he has to do so much work to get it through. So as they try to defend this tier 2 turret, look at this. Albert's just going to go ahead and start up the Lord. He doesn't need the rest of the team to come here. They can just keep this, Myanmar at bay from even entering their jungle. Ruby DD, like, just trying to make something happen will just get poked down, and that's just Sans. Sans is 0-0 and 10. It's nearly impossible to get the kill on this Valentina. So with that, Myanmar is going to find themselves once again on the defensive, trying to hold on the best they can. For Indonesia, with the tools they have and the fact that Sans has an Implosion, they could possibly force this situation in here. And shields are going to be popped already before that Lord even gets there. Holy Crystal just picked up by CW, so the damage is now even further ahead for Indonesia in terms of potential. Myanmar on the defense.
A lot of battle spells already back up. It's going to be just almost decimated there by the Fracture penalty zone on the 3 Lepay. Again with the engage, and now going to Zaman Force onto the back, doing a lot of damage. Ruby DD will lose his life, and Side as well just gets melted down, completely obliterated under the base turret as Indonesia continue the siege. Now into the top lane. That's going to be base turret number 2 taken down as Lippy zones them again with some damage on that hammer, swinging it back. Ken going to take a little bit of that. Sans again also goes for a splash. Albert looking for the play. Keyboy again with the spatial migration into the winter crowd as he pops into Violent Requiem, and look at Justin, who can't even defend. Juno forced back all the way to the fountain, and Ruby DD spawns back in. But Indonesia, 16-1, have just dominated Myanmar in a clean sweep.
Oh man, a clean sweep. My goodness, the ending there, like, I knew that they were very far ahead, Mirko. I knew that, it was highly likely that Indonesia was going to punch it in there, but usually we see teams being able to clear out the first Lord possibly, and, at least buy a little more time. But Keyboy again on this Guinevere. He did it in the same fashion that they did yesterday in the game 2. Exactly, the Winter Crown. And not only that, but he did the same thing yesterday with hitting 3 targets. But this time it was key because as they got more members off the list, they could punch it in and end the game here. And they get the sweep. And, you know, we don't know exactly what's going to set up for the grand final, but maybe Indonesia is on their route to deal with some revenge towards Malaysia. If Malaysia moves forward, we don't know that just yet because that's the match later on. But right now, they have secured their spot to the WEC in Riyadh later this year. But we'll take a look at the highlights here once again for Indonesia. Very much a highlight reel for them. And it just looked like, you know, straight from the draft, we already knew kind of the game plan from Indonesia because we saw this yesterday and how dominant it was. And you're thinking, you know, Myanmar being undefeated and a great team themselves, they would be able to handle it. And I think when you look at the draft, that was the idea. Let's try to be tanky enough to survive the burst possibility that could happen like we saw from Albert yesterday on this Nolan pick plus the Guinevere. But I think it's just too much. It's you're CC'd for so long with the spatial migration, with the Violent Requiem, and then, you know, you have that burst potential, and that's just the 2 that we're talking about. Even with this fight here in the mid lane, you can just see how overloaded things were for Myanmar so early in the game. I mean, you know, in a similar fashion, Indonesia, they knew their power spikes. They knew how to get control in the early part. They knew how to punish, and that's tough. You see that from Ruby DD. This is a good pickoff, but earlier, the amount of effort that has to happen here for Ruby DD, yeah, to get close to a target, to pick them off, is so difficult. Great penalty zone into the base, under the Zaman Force once again. And that's what makes this so devastating of a combination. Penalty zone, Zaman Force, you're forced to fight in it. There's Keyboy getting that set up to get Ken out. And then they just end the game here. And even CW there on the back, just getting those extra kills, of course. And it was too late. I mean, 16-1. Under 11 minutes from Indonesia. Like, I don't know if this is actually their fastest game in account to some of the off-stream games that they have, but this is dominant.
Fastest stream game for sure.
Fastest stream game for sure, you know, and my goodness, Indonesia just had this game plan in mind from the draft. They executed it perfectly, and they got them the snowball that they needed here. Myanmar really didn't have room to breathe because, again, when you look at a Roger in the gold lane, it's difficult. You know, it's really difficult to farm up the way that you need to. You can see the huge gold difference between Juno and CW. The Roger just didn't work out the way that they wanted it, and it couldn't get online fast enough. And even if it did, I feel like even if Juno had more gold, more items that he needed, the team fighting would have been very difficult. Even with a good implosion and everything, you know, maybe you could have turned that around, made something happen. But I just think with a Roger gold lane against this Harith, it was not going to work out in the end. So unfortunately for the lineup, even though it was tanky, it had good vision with the, you know, having the Novaria there. But it was difficult. It was difficult to watch because of just how strong Indonesia played this lineup. And it was very reminiscent of yesterday.
It really is. It definitely feels like deja vu. It's almost like they replayed the exact same game they played against Thailand. It also happened in game number 2. But my question, right, is what is Myanmar? What happened to Myanmar? Myanmar were also so good. You were mentioning it already. In their groups, undefeated. They didn't even drop a single. No, they dropped 1 game against Cambodia. And then after that, they just steamrolled through everyone else in their groups. To see them go out in this way is kind of sad, you know, especially, you know, after that interview with Justin, he kind of promised us that he would meet us later on in Riyadh for Iesf for the main stage. It's unfortunate for Myanmar. I really hope they come back stronger with this performance because definitely there were a lot of things to dissect, to go back and review again, to come back stronger. But got to give it over to the player of the match, man. The man that has been getting the most hate out of every single member. Maybe most hate in Indonesia for the last 2 days, especially after the loss against Malaysia. After the 2-0, everybody was just, you know, trying to find a scapegoat. And who better than Albert, the guy who is replacing the main jungler usually for Fnatic Onyx. And he just comes in yesterday as well, on these assassins and shuts everybody up. He shuts everybody up real good with another 0 death performance on the assassin. So for Albert, this I think is his like stat right now, his record right now. in all of the assassin games that were at least streamed, he hasn't died a single time.
Poof. What is his KDA is my question. Right? Like
10-0 today. KDA? Yesterday it was 16-0 on the Nolan, and it was 13-0 with the Ling. So someone calculate that, right? I'm not that good at maths. Quick maths. But for you guys out there, go ahead and calculate it, man.
We're just wannabe analysts.
An insane number, bro. I think, all right, 13 plus 16, that's 29, right? And plus 10, so it's 39-0. KD. The A, I'm not going to count the A, all right?
You know, I get it. Like, I think Albert really stepped up because we know how like the fan base can be. We know how, you know, fervorous they can be. We know how dedicated this fan base can be. And I feel like anytime you are, let's say any team that you are the jungler for, you have the most eyes on you. Because like for the longest time,
especially on assassins.
Yeah, especially on assassins, but also even before we had this kind of shift happen where it was so much of this, how good is this jungler for retributions? How fast can they retribution? Because it was all about the retribution dance. And then now it's kind of shifted where it's like, okay, you have these assassins once again shining, and you still have the eyes on you. You know, you still have them on you because of the fact that they want to see you make the plays. But again, I think a big part of Albert's success and any of the junglers out there is obviously the team, but also Keyboy, a key component, whether it's Albert, you know, whether it's whoever it may be. The point is this lineup works really well with what they draft, whether it's a utility jungler, whether it's an assassin jungler, and they make it work. And just the teamwork that you see kind of unfold here from the Indonesian team is something that I think a lot of teams will look up to, and they probably have for a long time. I know the fan base, like I said, can be very heated on what they want to say or what they feel, but at the end of the day, this Indonesian team right here has proven that even when they go and face adversity, which was the loss that they faced, they can step back up. And we heard too, you know, like, you have to think all these teams are preparing for multiple events, and they get only so many hours in a day for scrimmage.
That's true.
And you know, so for them, this is part of it. Like the adjustments that they made just from, you know, that one loss that they had, and then they came out swinging yesterday and today to the point where is the weak point for them? You know, like this is just a very strong showing from Indonesia's ability to rise up against adversity.
Right.
And that's what we saw from them. So
you know what the weak point is usually?
What is the weak point?
For this Indonesian team, particularly for this roster?
What is it?
Usually their interviews. They give very basic answers usually. So we'll test them with the interview.
Let's test them. All right, let's call up. Let's go ahead and call up everybody. I'm going to make sure my VMix is ready. And we're going to call up the entire Indonesian team, by the way. So let's go ahead and welcome up the Indonesian team. Call them up here for the interview with me and Mirko. Of course,
Hello.
Let's see. Hello.
See, man. Hello.
Hello, guys. Congratulations. Very strong win. Oh, wait. They just got the blanket. I thought it was something else, man. Again, congratulations, guys. You have locked in your slot to WEC 2024, and also you still have a grand final match later on, which is just it's a best of one. Who are you looking to see? Are you guys looking to see some revenge? Are you looking forward to Malaysia winning their next match to go face off in the grand final?
Balik enam nggak Malaysia?
Di final lawan Malaysia. Jawab. Gilang. Kalau dari aku sebenarnya siapa aja? Nggak ada.
Pakai bahasa Sunda.
Enggak, bahasa Indonesia.
I need a translator, Mirko. I need a translator.
Don't worry, I got you.
Ya kita
Alright.
tinggal tunggu sampai jadi yang itu kita lawan.
All right, so according to Sans, he really, it doesn't matter as long as he gets to face off against the best team, I guess. You know, like whoever qualifies, he's fine with it. No problem for him. All right, so I got a question as well.
Gotcha.
And I think I have to throw this at Albert, you know, the guy who's been getting all the hate after that loss against Malaysia. How are you feeling right now, Albert, after having a solid performance? Solid is an understatement. You were performing like a madman on these assassins. 0 deaths on the assassins. The stream matches at least, right? So yesterday, Albert, you had a great performance on the Nolan. You said that, you know, the opponents aren't that strong. Thailand weren't that strong. Today you faced off against #1 in Group A, and you did the same thing. What was the idea behind that? How are you so good on the Nolan, bro?
Kenapa Nolannya keren banget? Asik. All good.
Okay. English.
That's the phrase, nice. We just answered with biasa aja. It's like it's normal. It's normal. Yeah, it's a classic one. This is why it's the weakness point of them, you know, for the interviews. You have any other questions?
The interviews. I was gonna say, I think Albert spoke more in his solo interview yesterday, you know, with the English. But so I guess last question for you guys, for me anyway. Are you enjoying the patch? Is this a refreshing change to the meta game? Are you guys enjoying it? Do you like this change from, you know, everything being utility junglers?
Kiboy want to answer. Enjoy nggak patch baru ini, boy? Let's go, guys. In English.
Go, Kiboy.
In English, Kiboy. I'm not translating. English.
Okay, try. For me, yeah, the patch so good. Like, we enjoy to learn something new, and we can try so many hero gameplay, and Coach Yep very like the patch.
Coach Yep's happy.
Coach Yep's very happy.
Thank you, Kiboy. Thank you, guys. Mirko, you good?
I got one last question. Yeah, I got one last question here, and it has to be to the CEO. So, question to CEO, Captain Boots, Mr. Boots, CEO Boots. When will you play?
I'm coach right now.
All right, so he's the boss right now. That's it. Okay. Do you want to tease us? You know, Coach Boots, what do you want to pick for your team next? Get them one by one to do interviews, especially Albert. If Albert is with his friends, he just becomes a shy boy. I don't know why that happens, but we gotta get him alone. He was actually answering with some really good answers yesterday to our questions.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, actually, you know, he really did. But it was great to have the whole team there, you know, and after this big victory for them, because again, they secured their spot going to WEC, and that was the main thing for them. And now you heard it there. They don't, you know, for Sans and the rest of the team, I'm sure, they don't mind who they go up against. Either it's Malaysia, they get to go for a revenge match, or they go against Cambodia, another team they know very well from the international stages. They just want to go against